southwesterly winds up to 35 kilometres an hour. In South Australia, as we've got showers mainly around the southern agricultural area and moderate southwest to southeasterly winds. Showers, low cloud or fog may make driving conditions a little rough around the Adelaide Hills. So far, Mount Lofty has picked up 25 millimetres. Over here in the west, where we've got mostly sunshine and warmer temperatures, 28 degrees at top in Perth and 33 in Carnarvon. Further north, and hot and fresh easterly winds across the region. Severe fire conditions for parts of the top end, 35 degrees in Broome. Let's head around the nation tomorrow. Sunny in Brisbane, showers due for Melbourne, and mostly sunny, warmer in Canberra, top of 17.
Thank you very much, Virginia. Vanessa. Good morning, Virginia. How are you?
Good morning, Michael.
Please, always confusing.
Yeah, that's so confusing.
Welcome back to News Breakfast. This morning, candles light the way to safe haven. Thousands of Australians rally to show support for asylum seekers.
Something has to be done. We can't just sit here and not do something. Talks within Australia's immigration minister in Europe discusses Australia's response.
It is being fast-tracked. We are obviously looking at making an announcement this week.
Military response to the government expects to authorise anti-Islamic State airstrikes in Syria.
A 52-year-old Queensland man accused of murdering his 6-year-old daughter.
And the Syrian spy ball surprises motorists in Thailand.
Look ahead to the love of old houses, the renovators, who just can't stop at one major project. We'll meet Dominic and Marie Romeo later this morning.
Sweating sports this morning, there are no more Australians left in the singles draw at the US Open. Massive total of 6-4, 6-4 to Flavia Fernandez this morning. We'll bring you some highlights.
Severe fire conditions across the top end and warmer weather over in the west.
Pressure is building on Tony Abbott's government to boost Australia's refugee intake by thousands as European leaders struggle to come up with a coordinated response to the flood of Syrians pouring across their borders. New South Wales Premier Mike Baird is supporting an increase of at least 10,000 for Australia's refugee intake. Now, that matches Labor's call, but others in the Liberal Party want to go further, with backbencher Ewan Jones calling for up to 50,000 extra places. Thousands of Australians gathered in capital cities overnight to hold vigils for refugees and call for compassion from the federal government.
The Immigration Minister Peter Dutton is holding talks in Paris and Geneva and will report back to the Prime Minister. And as we just heard from the Foreign Minister, an announcement will be made this week. Elsewhere in Europe, leaders are struggling with their response. The UK has pledged an extra 20,000 places over 5 years, but smaller countries, including Hungary, have rejected calls from France and Germany for compulsory refugee quotas.
For more, here's our Europe correspondent Marta Miller, who joined us earlier from Munich.
The asylum seekers continue to flood into Germany here and here into the main station at Munich. Once again, the talk is of mandatory quotas, and we have some new figures being bandied about. Talk of Germany, for example, taking 30,000 under a mandatory quota system. Talk of smaller countries taking about 12,000. But Hungary, in particular, is one of the strong opponents of such a system, and the Prime Minister Viktor Orban says, look, first things first, let's get our borders closed off here, let's get the situation under control, and then maybe we can start talking about mandatory quotas. So his argument is, as long as we're just continuing to allow more and more people to flood in, then we can hardly talk about mandatory quotas because we don't have a handle on how many people are coming. But certainly here at Munich, the people do still keep coming. Buses behind me will take some of them off to venues around the city. Other trains take other people off. We're not seeing the same jubilant scenes here, but we're still seeing a lot of Germans coming down, offering their time, and actually they're looking.
I think what Germany's done is wonderful, and Australia can do more. Australia can do more for the Syrian refugees. I have been very public about my support of upping Australia's intake per state by 68 refugees per day for the next 15 years. That will give us an intake by 2030 of 2 million. I think it needs to be done gradually. It needs to be done slowly because the screening process is very, very vital and important and essential. And anyone that's proven to be bona fide and with passports, especially if they're a family, happy to take them on. Doesn't matter if they're Christian or not, as long as they're law-abiding and no criminal record that can be checked by ASIO and the Australian Federal Police. I say, open up our doors. The regional parts of Australia, there are some small towns that could be resettled, and if we do it gradually, 68 per day is doable. That still works out at about, well, it will work out at about 100,000 per year. I know that's a lot, but if you break it up per state, it's 68 per day. And, you know, if you just have 8 hours in a day, it's less than processing 10 people per hour. Now, if we can put man on the moon, and if we can start sending aircraft passengers into space, as Sir Richard Branson's hoping to do, why can't we process under 10 people an hour? It's just beyond me. So, this is Lord Reagan, the Royal Colonial Boy, signing off. I've already gone on record officially to both sides of Parliament requesting that they support upping Australia's intake to 2 million by the year 2030. But the initial crisis in Syria has to be addressed and addressed quickly. 100,000 a year sounds a lot, I know. But whilst we keep defending what we're doing on a per capita basis, we're not doing enough on a per square kilometre basis. Per square kilometre basis, we've got lots and lots of land that is unsettled, where we could, you know, build barracks like they did in, even World War II. We don't want to use the term prisoner of war, but the barracks that were made for the prisoners of war were adequate in terms of providing beds and showers and ablutions. That could be done, not quite like a detention camp, but just somewhere to give them shelter for the first 18 months. Then once all the processing has been done, because I think it would take 18 months to at least maybe 3 years to process 100,000 people. But then once that's done, I fully support helping them settle in 100 different towns around Australia, little towns in country areas where, yes, they would need to be supported with food vouchers and other essential services with a special refugee card, Australian refugee card, and then within 5 years, provided they've learned the English language and they've learned the Australian national anthem, and they have demonstrated that they're happy to be here and they're not a threat, let them assimilate. I'd also like them to learn Australian history. Anyway, we could benefit from these refugees, because if only 10% of them end up building businesses in Australia in the next 15 years, they will be employing, another huge amount of people, and they'll be employing multi-generational Australians as well. So for the archbishops who are proposing that we only take in Christian refugees at the top of the list, I understand why they're saying that, and whilst it sounds a bit racist, Australia is in danger of becoming a Muslim country totally by 2050, and if we were taking in 100,000 Muslim people a year, once they got voting rights, Christians would be almost non-existent in Australia. However, in this instance, I have not mentioned race or religion. I just want people to be bona fide refugees. Doesn't matter what colour or creed they are. If they are legitimate refugees and they can prove it, and we can fingerprint them and identify them, and even Gracie, she can help identify if you can't, you Gracie. I say let them in, especially if they got passports. If it's beyond a shadow of a doubt, let them settle sooner. Yeah, gorgeous, isn't she gorgeous? Yeah, let them settle sooner if they can prove it. So like a point system, and like a 100 points system. If they can prove that they're legitimate, they've got nothing to worry about. We can give them citizenship sooner than 5 years, maybe 3 years. The more valid the case, the quicker they can be processed. If they've lost their passports and they can't be identified, then obviously it's going to take years to prove that they're not terrorists. We have to fingerprint them. We've got to, take a camera of their retinas and do a lot of other checking. And don't forget, all these refugees, they have to be screened for health as well. We don't want to be bringing in disease like typhoid or tuberculosis. We must be very, very careful that these people aren't carrying, what if one of them has Ebola? I mean, they're not from Africa, but it's, some of them may have been in Africa in the last 12 to 18 months. So we just have to be very careful. So please, can we just have a mature, bipartisan approach to having a roundtable discussion in Canberra? How is the best way we can solve this terrible humanitarian crisis that has been caused by those bastards Daesh, the Daesh Death Cult? That's what they do not like being called, so stop calling them ISIS, because that's their public relations name, and every time they see that in print they get their jollies, because they're not really a state, so why call them the Islamic State? Even people who are Islamic say they're nothing to do with us. So they're Daesh, the Death Cult, as Tony Abbott has taken my advice and persists in calling them the Death Cult. They have caused this problem, and it's something like 11 or 14 million refugees that are now flooding the borders of Europe and heading for Germany. And how good is Germany? Angela Merkel, I could give you a big, big kiss on the cheek, both cheeks, and a nice big Australian colonial boy hug. You are setting a wonderful Christian example, Angela, and you are convincing other nations to look at themselves in the mirror and say, hey, we all need to do more. This is not just a European problem, this is a global problem. So let's all be sensible about it. Let's not get into arguments and debates about, blame. Let's try to aim on a solution, a timely one. We can't wave a magic wand and solve the problem straight away. This is a 10-year problem. It's going to take 10 years to overcome this crisis. Everybody's got to put their shoulders to the plough and do not just a little bit more. They've got to do a lot more. So this is the Royal Colonial Boy, Lord Reagan, otherwise known as award-winning New South Wales journalist Reagan John Murphy, appealing to all Australians to forget what politics or what party you support. Support the refugees. These are not boat people. These are not illegal immigrants. These people who need to be rescued. Let's rescue them. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening.